I'm dropping everything to go to Africa,
Yeah. Mm,
malaria,
yeah.
disease.
Yeah.
Like, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? You know what I mean? And on that hill, Danny, on that hill, the Lord speaks to me. He said, these are my people. But I realized that these are my people also. And it just becomes such an experience where I understand that these African people that I'm seeing right before my eyes living in these terrible conditions, they are my people. I lived in a hut for about 6 months in the village, not knowing a single word. It was a huge deal. There was not a single other white skin colored person around you that lives in a hut and is doing what you're doing. So you must be a spy. I strongly believe that we're really making our life count when we're walking into what the Lord has for us. That cold winter on the bridge, I asked, Lord, are you really there? And if you are, do you have some plans with me? You have some plans for my life? Because I'm at the end of it. We make our life count by actually counting the time. So if I have to cut a Netflix subscription, to be faithful, to walk in my calling, I gotta do it.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Make Your Life Count, a podcast about people that are invested in their lives and what we believe makes the most sense, things that count. And those are two things, God and people. Also, that happens to be the motto for Charity Cup. And we hope the stories that we feature here will inspire you to make your life count by investing in God and people wherever you are. So today we have a very special guest all the way from none other than Uganda, just a little bit further away from where we're at. But it's a great pleasure to invite this gentleman to the podcast. I've heard his testimony. I've heard other people talk about his testimony. So he's a very inspirational guy. Some of the work that he's doing in Uganda, and maybe you can find out other things that he's doing. So without any further ado, please help me welcome Alexandru to the podcast. Hi, Alex.
Greetings,
Welcome.
brother. Greetings, Daniel. Greetings, everyone.
Very nice to have. Alex, maybe if you can give us your last name just so we have it as a perspective here, and we'll write it in
It's
the description.
B-U-D, Bud. Not B-A-D, but B-U-D.
So like Bud, like a friend,
Bud.
right?
Yeah, exactly. That's my last name, yeah.
Right. So in Romanian, Arfi Bud, right?
Bud, yeah.
Right,
Right,
Alex.
right.
And you are Romanian. I see you wearing the Romanian.
Yeah, I'm wearing not only this, I have something underneath. I don't know if I should reveal it now.
Please.
It's something that is gonna surprise you.
Wow. No, that is a surprise. Let me guess. Look, I have one in the back there. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
So I'm trying to really, kind of blend in.
So I assume before we get into it, I assume your notes gave it to you or
Yeah,
John?
it's like I might know more about you than you think, right?
Wow, I know we
Right,
plan
right,
to
right.
reveal it
No,
later,
no
but
worries.
that's really cool.
No
I had
worries.
no idea.
Yeah.
So then you might know about a few things about maybe that saying, make your life count. But anyway, so Alex, I understand we're currently living in Uganda. Maybe you can kind of take us where you're at right now. What are you doing in like a short synopsis? And then I want to find out a little bit more on who you are, what's your background, how did you arrive to doing what you're doing today and making your life count in this way?
Yeah, so yes, we're living in Uganda, which is East Africa, right below South Sudan. So South Sudan would be in the north. We have Kenya on the east, Congo on the west, and then on the south we are bordering with Rwanda, Burundi, and Tanzania. Just a little bit of perspective. So we really believe this is a strategic place, especially for the northern part and the eastern part, where there are a lot of Muslims, South Sudan, and then going a little bit east, Ethiopia, Somalia. And then we have on the western side a lot of conflict. Congo has been in civil wars like in forever, and then South Sudan as well. We live right below at the border with South Sudan, and I believe, my family believes, and the people we're working with believe that we are there for a very specific reason, and that is to really empower and equip people to understand what God is calling them. So everyone has calling, everyone has a place, they're born, and the place maybe they migrate, jobs, families, and so on. But if we carry the calling with us, and if we are faithful to what God called us, I believe we will live not only the most satisfying life, but a very effective life as well for the kingdom, and for seeing other people come to faith, get to know the Lord. The ones that are in the vine, they will produce fruit. And it's one thing to have a person like me and you, who understand that, and it's another thing to have David and Sam, and Charles and all these other guys who understand the same thing. And we're doing a podcast right now. Someone is somewhere else, and if they understand they're also called to live for Jesus, this full, amazing life, then it's like I'm making my life count, and they're also making their life count, and our life counts together, for the kingdom. So, in a nutshell, I would say the main focus is to raise others, as Paul tells Timothy, who will in turn raise others to do this faithful work, to do the work of the Lord, what he has called us to do.
I think you touched upon some really great topics here, because that is something personally I believe that everybody has sort of a different talent that God has given
Right.
them. And a lot of things, I think a lot of people believe that in order to sort of make your life count and sort of produce fruits, if you would, you have to be a missionary or a pastor. But we believe, or I personally believe, if God puts you in a certain place, and maybe your talents are different, maybe you're an engineer, maybe you're a doctor,
Right.
if you
Right.
have that perspective of always doing what, like the eternal perspective, you can do some great things in your place, and you don't have to be
Amen.
like everybody. You could be a missionary in that place with the profession and the talents that God gave you. So I think that's really cool that you brought that up. So now you currently right now are living in Uganda. Are you a missionary? Are you just like move there and live there? What exactly?
Yeah, so we are missionaries, yes, but we are also trying to blend in. We have a safari car. We do safaris. There's some national parks there that are there's just near us. So
Yeah,
we have guests coming in sometimes. I drive them, like I'm a safari driver. Sometimes
yeah.
they hire the car to to see the animals and so on. So this is like a side kind of work that we're doing to be able
Hmm.
to help the family and the ministry. And then I also love children, and I've been pretty good in swimming. So I'm swim coach, like a part-time swim coach. I offer swimming lessons for children. So these are just the two small things that we're doing, not only to, just depend on others, but also, as Paul says, we should also work in as much as capacity we can. Of course, the main focus is reaching out to others, empowering others. So we often travel. I would say about 2 weeks out of every month we are traveling. We are on a road trip, and we stay with the people. We teach them. We reach out together with them. Together we're finding out. Okay, why are you here? What is God calling you? So in a sense, yes, you could say definitely that we are missionaries, and I love that because Daniel, like to the 8 to 5 jobs, on top of that, it's yes, we can be very intentional, but we often find that we have limited time, so we have to be so strategic in how we count the days, as Jesus says, and we make our life count by actually counting the time. So if I have to cut a Netflix subscription, to be faithful to walk in my calling, I gotta do it. So it's a blessing. It's such a blessing that we have the time to, in a sense, really do this work, as you said, more like full time. So these are like part time, like the work becomes part time, and then full time we are in ministry as missionaries to the tribes that God has sent us to. So it's a huge privilege and blessing.
So you guys, you work with a lot of different tribes in Uganda, sounds like.
Yeah, so there are over 40 spoken languages, and that means there are many, many other tribes. Some tribes have different kind of dialects, variations of a language. In the north alone, there, at least 6, 7 major tribes. So it's really funny sometimes that you ask that because, we have some people we've trained that we can call disciples. So we're moving with them, and
Mm,
we're moving like 100 miles north, and then they don't even know the language, and they're
mm,
from there, and they're like, you guys, like, and we make fun of each other. Now you're a missionary too because you also don't know the language. So there's really, it's a complex region. uh, People are still living remotely, and they keep kind of their tradition, and language is one of them.
is do you have what is the name of sort of the ministry that you're working with, or if there is one?
Yeah, so right now we're not. Okay, let's say we are affiliated with
Hmm.
some ministry which is called Frontiers,
Hmm.
and it's a kind of like a global ministry. It's present
Okay.
in a lot of countries, and in the US as well. And then we have like a smaller branch of that, which is called discipleship movements. And this comes from it's like a way of reaching out to the people, and it's creating movements by helping people, start small groups,
Mm.
small discovery groups. We call them discovery Bible studies. And once that happens and people catch the vision, then
Hmm.
it really multiplies. So it becomes a discipleship movement.
Okay. So we'll kind of come back to this and sort of the work that you're doing there. But I wanna kind of maybe start about like kind of from the beginning how who Alexandru is and how you got to become who you are. But I do want to touch upon the idea that you kind of touched on two things that I'm familiar with. One is swimming. I used to be a swimmer, so that's interesting
Okay.
that I didn't know you're into that. So I assume you swam a little bit at your in your life a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, I was pretty good back in high school. I did some competitions, and
Nice.
I liked also to stay in shape. If we're healthy, we're able to work for the Lord even more. So
Absolutely, absolutely.
yeah,
So I know a swimmer has to be very disciplined, contrary
right,
to what a
right.
lot of people don't. When I was in high school, the popular sport was basketball and football, but honestly, swimming is you have to be very disciplined. A lot of practices started at 5 a.m. in the morning. So I don't know how it was for you guys, but it's a very disciplined sport. So that tells me already
Yeah.
a lot about you. And then you touched upon safari, which I happened to experience it last year actually, and I thought was really really cool. You see it, you get to see a little bit on TV, like, oh, cool, people are driving in the car and they get to see the animals. It's a very different experience when you're there. Like
Yeah, I
it's an
agree.
amazing, yeah.
So it's like you have to be there to understand, and like our explanation isn't gonna really make sense until you actually come and you experience it firsthand for yourself. I agree
Absolutely.
fully.
And I
Yeah.
think the driver, honestly, the one I went with happened to be in a different con in Tanzania, but it mattered a lot because I realized the driver can kind of make or break the trip because if
Yeah.
they're not courageous enough to go and seek, it's like the animal just, well, I don't know how it is where you're at, but at
It's
least
the
in our,
same.
like, we have to go
Yeah.
find them. And if
Yeah,
he's like, oh, I'm not
exactly.
gonna go there because, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
the road is not great, we would have
Right,
seen
right,
anything.
right,
But
right,
one
right.
of the amazing things, like he took us and we kind of came face to face with this elephant, and I honestly thought we were gonna get run over. But that was a surreal moment, and it had to do with the driver, you know. So I don't know. You're probably I don't know your type of driver, but that's amazing. So
Yeah,
you doing
yeah.
just you doing this, and
Yeah, let's
I don't
just
know.
say I've seen some things.
You've
I've
seen
seen
some
some
things.
things.
Okay,
Yeah.
since we're on this subject, just a small parenthesis here. I was wondering, is your car open or is it enclosed? Like,
Yeah, so we have two cars. One has it's actually a RAV4, which everyone knows, but it has the window up that opens, so you can stand and see and take pictures and so on, which is safe. And then we do have another, like, quote unquote safari car, but we don't have the tarp on the side like you see. We just have like normal windows, and it's like a regular car, but it's a safari car. So we don't do the open stuff.
hmm.
Yeah.
Because I was always wondering some of these you see, and the one I went with was pretty open, but then again, we didn't get to see a lion. It was, yeah. I was wondering, I mean, is there any kind of worry that these things are going to jump in the car or, on the
Uh,
car?
yeah, I mean, if we think about it, if it was a complete wilderness, it's like, animals are animals, they're unpredictable. I mean, talking about lions, leopards and so on, we don't know. But the safari parks, because they're visited by so many people every year, I guess, and I'm saying this because I've seen it with my
Hmm.
own eyes. We literally, like, imagine the road, like the safari road, how it goes, and then there was lionesses right there on the road, and they wouldn't move. And I mean, even if we try, we had to go around them because they're just so used to people. And I guess for them, it's like, you know, some new tourists are around,
I
so
see.
they're not aggressive. And
Hmm.
then the safari parks where we are, there's just so much deer that there's just plenty of food. So there wouldn't be a reason to
Hmm.
attack, unless, of course, you come down from the car, you try to take a selfie with the elephant. That's when you're really, like, you're crossing the line. And
Hmm.
there's people who've died because of those I call them foolish, acts.
Yeah.
And so you do have to, like, definitely stay in the car. And like, if you see any kind of threat that the animal is trying to show, then just kind of back off, stay put. Don't threaten the animals. Yeah, because elephants are pretty big, right?
They, yeah, the ones we ended up seeing, they're unbelievably big, and
Yeah,
I learned a lot of
yeah.
things. They got actually very, very close, and I thought they're gonna run over the car,
Did
but
they flap the ears?
I don't know. I know the trunk went up, and I
Okay.
believe
Yeah,
they
yeah.
told us that that was a sign of being threatened or something, or I don't
Yeah.
remember the
Like,
years,
back
but
off.
yeah. But I was
Yeah.
gonna, Alex, so if somebody goes to Uganda, they want to go on a safari, I suppose they could probably contact you and you can definitely point them in the right direction.
Yeah, if we're not somewhere deep in the bush, in the villages, taking the gospel, absolutely, I would love to take someone on a safari.
Sounds good. So we'll have
Yeah.
your contact information in the description here. And even from guys, if you've never been on a safari, it's an amazing experience. I definitely would say it's something that you should have on your bucket list. You should do it. It's totally not like you see at the zoo because you think, you go to the zoo, I saw a lion. It's not like that at all.
No, not
The
at all.
adrenaline
Yeah.
that happens as you're trying to, at least for us, when you don't know what you're gonna see around the corner next to a tree, it's a very different experience. So yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes you have to stay put, like to, you hear something or you sense something and then you have to stay and wait. It's like you're the one waiting, zoo, you're just like, oh, there's a giraffe right there, there's, a hippo right there, whatever. But here it's more like seeking and searching, and you also find the animals really in their natural habitat, which makes it way more special.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, it is a long parentheses, but since you brought it up and we are talking to you from Uganda and you're involved in that, I didn't know you're involved in that, but that could probably be a whole podcast of its own of all these stories that you maybe have.
Yeah.
But even being in the bush, that's okay. So I want to get to that. So let's see what where sort of who's Alex and where do you come, kind of how you ended up here, if you could share with us.
Yeah, so just very brief. Recently, actually, I went through some of the photos that I have on my computer, and some of them are like 15, 16 years old. And I saw a photo of me. So right now I have what you could say like a longer hair. I need a haircut. I'm hoping to do it, but before it was even more longer. Back in when I was in university, and I had this curly, massive hair, long hair. And I just saw that picture and I'm like, who's that guy? Like, a young guy. I believe I was 21 at that time and really didn't know anything, just kind of trying to make sense of life. And yeah, my family brought me up well, which I'm very grateful for. But you know how it is. Everyone has to find their path, find their way. So here I was trying to find my way. And as I'm finding my way, I'm also aware that there is something chasing me, if I can say that. And the reason why I'm saying that is every time we did any kind of activity, whether it is with the church or kind of even outside the church, like social work, just feeding the poor, for example. My heart was always like beating faster. I just knew, man, this is something that I want to do. Like I want to be with those who are vulnerable, and I want to help. And I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't know how I can be of help, but I want to. I have the desire. So we did some trips to Oltenia, and if I remember correctly, even back then there was Navobi Charity Cup, which I was once kind of just seeing part of. I don't remember much, but I know there was the football tournaments,
Hmm.
and I had a good friend who was really into that, and he kind of brought me along. So it's like it just anything that is for others, and if others happen to be vulnerable, I'm just there. So now, um, in Timisoara, a group of students from Timisoara uh, said that they're gonna go on a trip to Kenya, and it was gonna be in this slum, in this very poor place. And I just knew in my heart right away, I want to go there. I really want to go there.
Hmm.
And after a series of events, I was still my second year of university. After a series of events, um, miraculously, like really miraculously, I can say confidently, the Lord provided the sum of money that I needed. As a student, you're like scratching surface. You're not, you
Yep.
don't have the ability to go on a trip to Kenya, and we had to pay for it and so on, like all the expense. It was quite expensive for a second year, student. And the Lord provided unexpectedly. Even my parents were like, "It's hard to believe how really you received the funds to be able to go on a trip like this through even high school students who gave so that I could go." So, long story short, I'm on this trip and I'm seeing, we're landing very early in the morning. We're barely sleeping. Maybe 2, 3 hours, we catch some sleep, and then they take us on this hill. And on this hill, you can see maybe 100,000, 150,000 people all squeezed in these iron sheet houses. You can see and know that it's terrible living conditions. There is no water, there is no sanitation, there's sewage on the road. People are making their needs in plastic bags and just throw it on the road. You see like dogs, pigs, animals, and we're still on the hill. We don't know yet
Mm.
how smelly it is down
Mm.
there. And it was very smelly. So
So this is in Kenya, you said,
this
right?
is in Kenya, yeah. This is in Kenya, the trip with the university students. And on that hill, Danny, on that hill, the Lord speaks to me. The Lord spoke to me when I was about to commit suicide, and that's how he kind of if I can say, I got my attention and then saved me from that. This is the second time, like at some crucial times in my life, the Lord spoke to me again, and he said, "Do not dare to feel pity on these people. These are my people. I gave my life for them." And I'm hearing this word, and it's not just a word, it's like it's sinking in, it vibrates in my whole body, and all of a sudden it hits back. And I realize God said, right, he said, "These are my people." But I realized that these are my people also. And it just becomes such an experience where I understand these African people that I'm seeing right before my eyes in this living these terrible conditions, they are my people. So back in 2010, so that is 15 years ago, the Lord confirms, not it was somehow general, like you go to Oltenia, you go to some poor places in Romania and so on, you try to help, but now it becomes more clear that it's specific. There's a people, and those are the African people. And I have so many testimonies from that, by the way. Like I can see a brother, I call them brothers, anywhere in the world, and I just feel like an instant connection, like they're
Mm.
my brother. So they become my people, and I'm overwhelmed. And that first day I was like, good for nothing in a way, because I couldn't stop thinking about that, and I knew how to do something about it. So it starts like that, with this strong conviction, but also the Lord helped me to see that there's a calling, but there's also a specific people that this calling is attached to, and those were at that time they were the African people. And then, I mean, I look at today, right? Just a flashback of 15 years ago. I'm married with a Ugandan, extremely beautiful, extremely smart lady. I have 5 kids. I've adopted a Ugandan boy. And it's like, who was that guy with the long curly hair that didn't know anything? You know what I mean? It's like, how do you get from there to here?
Yeah.
And I can only say, Danny, it's the grace of the Lord. That's why I said in the beginning, making our life count. I strongly believe that it is, we're really making our life count when we're walking into what the Lord has for us. And
Yeah.
we're boldly willing to obey that small voice, that small whisper. It doesn't have to be big sometimes. And I know there are people watching and they're like, you know what, I 5 years ago I really felt the Lord was calling me. What did you do with that? Because in my high school years, the Lord was calling me. I put him on the shelf. I kept putting him on the shelf. Not now, not now. Now,
Mm-hmm.
after I finish university, after I get married, after that, when start a business and I have more time, and I need to start another business to help pay for my kids' university, and it's like, when, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So when you took this experience to Kenya, you mentioned countryside, I believe, or Kenya, right? Is that a countryside? You sounds like you went with countryside a few times to the villages there.
Right, right. Yes, when I was in Romania, still in high school, with the church, we did some trips to Oltenia. Yes.
Oh, oh, so not country. Okay, there was a ministry from the U.S. called Countryside. They would go to Oltenia, and
No,
that's
no,
why I
no,
knew
no,
of.
no, no,
I
not
see.
countryside, not countryside. Yeah.
Uh-huh. But in Oltenia, so okay, very cool. So that was your first experience. So how did sort of from that hillside experience, how did you maybe take us to some key moments? How in the world did you end up now living in Uganda, getting married, having a beautiful family that you mentioned, and the work that you're doing? Like, what are the big moments that happen? And first of all, at that time, did you already know the Lord, or where I assume maybe
Yeah,
you come from a Christian background, or how did you come to know the Lord?
yeah. I mean, I was religious, let's just say that. And I love the Lord as much as I heard about him from the Sunday school and
Hmm.
the Abraham, Moses, David stories, and there was definitely a desire in my heart. But then I mentioned suicide also. It's
Hmm.
it was there was a dark period in my life as well
Hmm.
where I just lost all hope. I lost my identity. I didn't know who I was, and it was a cold winter, and I was on the bridge
Hmm.
on top of Muresh River,
Hmm.
and I was just a moment away from jumping off that bridge, and it is on that bridge that you know, with all this with background of, I'm at that time I was in a crisis, so I couldn't say I was going to church, but I had a lot of church in me, if you can
Hmm.
say like that. I had
Hmm.
church lessons, and my family was very faithful in that, and of course that was very good. It was very good. It was a good foundation, but then I still had to come to this place of finding who God is for me. Like as you said, like when did you become, do you know the Lord? When did you know the Lord? And that's a
Hmm.
very good question,
Yeah.
because we have to get to that place of knowing Him. So for me, was on that cold winter on the bridge, I asked Lord, like, I don't know, like I was just speaking to Him, like, I heard about you. You're really there. Are you really there? And if you are, do you have some plans with me? You have some plans for my life? Because I'm at the end of it.
Hmm.
And it was very dark because I was living a duplicitary life. Like I was hiding, I was lying, I was faking, I didn't have any real friends. I had so many complexes, and it was just, it's like, you could say Satan got a hold of me in that way. And I was like, well, I guess nothing good is going to come out of you. And to make it worse, my dad spoke that over me. He said
Mm,
nothing good is ever going to come out of you, because in that moment, of depression and lostness, I also, my performance in school was really going down. So for him, he was looking at that. He was looking at my grades. So he said, I think he didn't mean it. He didn't mean to say in a wrong way, but he said, nothing is going to come out of you, because with these kind of grades, nothing
mm,
good really is going to come out of you.
mhm,
So he probably meant, I know he meant like, hey, wake up, shake yourself up. You got to step up, otherwise, like, there's no good future. And but that, to me, that I was already I was already dealing with a lot, so it hit even more. And
mhm,
and I was asking the Lord, really, like, is there something good that's gonna come out of me? Like, is it true that you have something for me? And if it's there, like, Lord, can you speak to me? I need to know, because I'm at the end of it. And I didn't hear God, verbally or audibly at that time. But something did happen on that bridge. And what happened was, I just all of a sudden had a peace, like a very strong peace. And I really felt strongly to just go home and rest. And that's what I did. And I rested. I had like a peaceful kind of rest, a peaceful night. And then I knew, like, yeah, there's peace with God, you could say that, but then still I had to strive harder to get to finding Him. And that meant, that was like the first experience. I still had to really want Him in my life. So I
mm,
really started to seek Him, from a traditional background. I grew up Baptist. I mean, I became nuts. I started going to, like, charismatic meetings, Pentecostal meetings, any kind of meetings
mhm,
that I was hearing about. I was all over the place. I was really trying to get to finding God, and for Him to speak to me, to know if He has something for my life. It was a journey. It was a
mm.
journey.
Uh, so I was going to mention, as you were on that bridge, you were obviously contemplating, like you were going to jump off. I was talking to somebody else that had an experience similar. He was going to take his own life, and we were just discussing and ironically, like the change in his life happened also in that moment, like when he came to that sort of line of like either I go this way or I go this way, and God got a hold of his life. Anyway, and what we were discussing, and the thing that came up is he felt like after he passed that moment, then he sort of chose life, and God like reached into his life, like you had almost like a new lease on life, and he was describing how almost he like could float because it's almost like having a near death experience and surpassing that, and almost you get this newfound courage. I don't know if that's how you felt. Uh,
It was
was it like a
similar, I
new,
think.
was it like a ground zero moment for you at that
Yeah,
point?
you can call it like that. You can say end of yourself. I can say end of myself, end
Mm,
of, like, I can't live like this anymore.
mm,
So, two things can happen from there. Like, when we're hitting rock bottom,
yeah.
it's like go down, down, or start coming up.
Mm,
And this is not like motivational speaking. Like, it's only the Lord who can really bring us up and give us a purpose and vision for life. It's not like I'm just gonna, wake up and, do something magic, like. So, yes, it's coming to the end of oneself. And, it's in those moments, it's like the Lord is near. He's near to the destitute. He's near to the vulnerable. He's the father of the orphans, you know. And we see that, you know, we see when, you know, people gather around this prostitute and he says, okay, woman, where are your accusers? Go and sin no more. Like coming to the end of yourself, you're about to die, and you receive mercy from the only person who can actually condemn you, because he said, okay, if you have no sin, then you can throw the stone. And he had no sin. The one who had no sin is the one who is offering mercy, saying, okay, go
Yeah.
and sin no more so that something worse doesn't happen to you. So, you know, it's like the Lord is there. He's there when we come to the end of ourselves. We just have to cry out to him, because he is the one that we need. He's the one that can restore and lift up.
Yeah. So at what point did the hill experience in Kenya happen, sort of from the bridge? Like, was it a few years apart, or just
Yeah,
cute?
yeah. Yeah, it was when I was still in high school at that time on the bridge. I was about to go to university, maybe in my last year of high school. So I was in my second year of university. So you could say about 3 years.
I also heard somebody say that it takes a lot of courage to get to that point in some ways.
Yeah,
Somebody said because to actually
I agree.
I always wondered, like, how could somebody get to that point, like mentally, what could go through your mind? Anyway, this podcast is not about that. I always thought that was interesting, but anyway,
But
it must have
just to
been a really
interrupt you,
that
just briefly, because I just only like 10 seconds
yeah,
to take on this,
please,
because
please.
I think we're touching on something here. And it's hard. That one of the reasons it's hard, and it's becoming harder, is because we live in this digital world, right? Like right now we're even doing something digital, but we're
Yeah,
doing it for the Lord.
yeah,
But it's just so easy to pretend and to fake. And it's not just that it's easy, but it's like the norm, you know, where, okay, I'm on camera, you know, I say the right things, I have, you know, 30 minutes, I gotta, you know, look nice, say the right things for 30 minutes, and then I go back and live like the way I am actually, you know. If I'm rude, I'm rude. If I'm, you know, saying cussing, I'm cussing. I can't cuss on camera, but I can cuss outside the camera, if you know what I mean. So
yeah,
we're just, is so, like, we live in this social media digital world where there's just so much pretense that coming to the end of ourselves is like we're swimming against the current, because it's like so few people do this and show us how to do this and speak about that. Is not okay to you know, to put up this mask and pretend. Like, we got to be honest with ourselves, and it takes courage, yes, and it's getting harder also, because now I can, you know, I can put add some filters here, and you know, you're gonna see me how I'm not, and
yeah,
it's just so easy.
yeah, yeah. Thank you for that. All right. So, kind of getting back, I guess, to the so you had this hill experience. So, how did that tell us how did you end up in Uganda,
Yeah.
living there? Which is again, you're a Romanian white guy living in Uganda.
Right,
That's not
right.
as, that's pretty unique. That doesn't happen every day. So,
Well,
how in the world did that happen?
yeah, well, Danny, I was a crazy guy, brother. I was so wild, man. I was like, if I knew I had a hold on something, it was hard to let go of that. So I told the leader of that trip, I said, his name, by the way, is also Danny. Also, I said, hey, Danny, I'm not coming back to Romania.
Hmm. So you're
And
in.
we
I'm
are
sure your
still in
parents are like, oh, okay, no problem.
yeah, yeah, no, just here the end of the story. So, and you know, he's like, I'm not asking questions, can I do this or that? Like, I'm saying I'm not coming back to Romania, to Timișoara, you know. And, you know, like, of course, there's questions that have to be asked, you know, why and so on. And I give my answers, you know, God spoke to me. These are my people, you know, these are my people, you know, you don't understand. Like, God spoke to me. It's a serious thing that has happened. And Donnie is like, you're coming back. And I'm like, I'm not coming back. So we go this back and forth a little bit. And then he, you know, he in his wisdom, he goes and he brings a paper that I signed, which was like a contract for that trip that clearly stated that I am going to go with that group and then come back with that group. And he just brought the paper and he said, Alex, you're a man after your word, right? Like you wouldn't lie to this to us, you know, like you signed, you're coming back. And you know, and I was like, man, you got me here, you know. So he got me, he really got me, and I had to come back. But that was like during the summer break. And then in October already I was back in Africa. So I think it was maybe July, something like that, that we went. And then in July, you know, August, September, October. So 3 months later, I'm back, not in Kenya, I'm back in Uganda. And the reason why was Uganda was because Kenya and that slum we went to was like a short-term mission trip, and we did what we wanted to do. So it was you know, was like where to pick up from, you know, like what to do, where to start next. And it wasn't like that was a problem, but I was thinking, contemplating about it, and then I started sharing with some of my friends, hey, you know what, I'm gonna go back to Africa. I'm actually going to Africa. I'm not going back to Africa, I'm going to Africa. And some missionaries from Germany to Romania heard about it. I knew them. I met them some years back and said, "Hey, look, like we see your passion. We know your desire for the Lord. We recommend to you this friend of ours. She's not in Kenya, but she's in Uganda. Just reach out, send her an email and see if it's of any help." So I reach out to this like back then she was in her 60s, you know, 60-year-old lady or over 60-year-old, and I'm just writing her an email and she's not replying, and I'm like, what's going on here? You know, like what's up with this person? And later I found out she's like this founder and director of a massive, massive organization gathering people from Germany, Switzerland, Austria, and you know, and Europe, and just doing this big work in Uganda. So when she finally got back to me, I was like, yeah, Alex, you know, you're welcome, you know, you can come, we're gonna send someone to pick you up and so on. And I didn't know who I was talking to until I met her in person. I'm like, you know, like, oh no, I was talking like I'm talking to just, you know, just like an office person, you know, like, why are you not getting back to my emails? But then I ended up, yes, in the central part of Uganda, and I was with this organization who was handling kids mainly. There was a lot of orphans. They have orphan houses. And not only that, but they had a very big network. Even at that time, it was around 10,000 children that they were sponsoring. Now it has gone. I don't know the numbers, but it has really grown since then. So, you know, they're sponsoring these kids. They have these orphan houses, and I'm in that. You know, it was not so clear what exactly I'm supposed to do there. But then I reached out to her and I say, look, my heart is beating for these people. I want them to know the Lord. I want to share the gospel with them. And she was like, oh, why didn't you tell me? You know, like I have so many connections. I can put you in touch with some great people doing that. So she got me in touch with a very humble, Ugandan pastor that took me under, and I was mentored and discipled by this man. Uh, and to this day, we're very, very close together. So I started there, and he took me to so many places in Uganda. And you're familiar with Crusades, like we had trucks and speakers, and we would go to this place, and kind of Billy Graham style, much smaller, but the style that is what I
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah.
And we were just preaching the gospel to these people. And after about 2 years, I really felt the Lord calling me to the northern part where we live right now, and that's right below South Sudan. We're less than an hour away from South Sudan.
Oh, Sudan. So Alex,
Yeah.
going back a little bit to Kenya, to that hillside, what exactly happened in your heart to be so strong that you told your guide, if you would, your leader, that that's it, that's it, I'm staying here.
I'm
That
staying
is crazy.
here.
See you,
I'm staying
man.
here. Yeah, exactly.
I'm
Yeah,
getting off the truck.
exactly. So it's a very good question, and I to understand the reason why I said that, we have to also look back at my life and at these key moments where it was in a conference, I was in a meeting, and then the Lord really touched my heart for missions. It's like I just knew I gotta live for others. I just knew it. I even had dreams, Danny. I had
This
I
has
had
been
dream.
Romania before you
This is
went
still in
under.
Romania. Yes, this
Uh,
is still in Romania, and it's like whenever there was a missionary coming from another country, or a Romanian missionary returning to Romania to share, man, I was like all over the place. I wanted to know. I was just so passionate about hearing testimonies and seeing these men and women who have left their country to go and be with others and tell them about the Lord. So it was progressively the Lord um, made sure that I knew that He's calling me, and it's even I had a prophetic word. We were in a meeting, and then there was this man from Switzerland who came, and he prophesied over me. It was very strong, and he said, like, I see you on the field, I see you on the mission field. But you take these things to heart, and you're like, yeah, I'm still in school, I still gotta finish this, finish that. I gotta, go do the baccalaureate, and then make sure I get to a good university. Like you keep them in your heart, but then what to do next is
yeah.
often a very big step. So why that moment? It is also, and I'm not, I'm not 100% sure. So I could be wrong here, but it's like I had also a feeling that what the Lord was calling me for the last time on that hill. And it's just like an impression that I had, like, I'm calling you again. And remember all those times, remember the man from Switzerland, remember that conference when I sent that person, and then the message, and it's like you were weeping, and like you get those moments where, remember, I was searching you. The Lord was saying, I was searching you out, and I was just putting him on the shelf, putting him on the waiting list. And now I'm calling you again. It's bigger than I can explain
Hmm.
when you put together all the history that I had with the Lord and the previous times He was speaking to me personally or through others, and even the fact that I had dreams of living among very poor people and loving it and being there with them. And I had dreams even as a child that I would live among these poor people. So it's like a journey, but then
Hmm.
it gets to the culmination, the culmination, I believe, and I'm not, that's why I said I'm not sure, was the Lord going to call me again if I said no? I don't know, but I'm very grateful that I said yes. And here am I, 15 years later.
You're saying I mean, people like as a kid, you're dreaming about sort of helping like poor
Yes, sir.
people. Wow,
Yes,
that
yes,
I've
yes.
never heard that. Most people are like, I want to be a soccer player, I want to be, I don't know. But you're saying you had this desire from a kid.
So
That's
get this, Daniel. In Sunday school, um, there's in Sunday school, and even some teachers in the normal school, there's this question, right? It's like every child's question: what do you want to become when
yeah,
you grow up?
yeah.
And I mean, I don't remember, right? I was young. I was maybe 7, 8 years old. I don't even know exactly how old I was. I don't remember. But my Sunday school teacher, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, I met him. And of course, I was already a missionary at that time. And he said, Alex, do you remember what you said when we asked you what you want to become when you grow up? And I said, no, sir. His name is David. He said, no, David, I don't remember. And he said, you said you wanted to become a missionary. And I was like, what? I don't remember that. It's like, I remember that. I see your life now. I remember that. You said you wanted to become a
Hmm.
missionary. So like a 7-year-old kid. I don't even know how I knew that. Like we probably had some missionaries coming to the church, but it's like there was definitely in there. It was in my life.
So you're telling me, so you had this desire, and then you get to sort of the hillside experience. Because again, I'm dwelling on this moment because I think there's some people watching that are probably even struggling. How do I know God is calling me to do something? How do I know God wants me to do or marry someone? And I think you're unpacking here more than just the mission itself, but just even the process of listening to the Lord. So you're saying that that defining moment was that hillside experience where you saw these people, and somehow your heart just felt like it belonged there, versus, let's say, I don't know, Siberia or Moldova, or there was just something special that you felt about that continent,
Yeah,
or yeah,
it's like as I said, a combination, and then of course we only see in part, and we see what's in front of us. Like right now I'm seeing you. Maybe I know what I'm gonna do tomorrow, and so I have some schedules, but it's like the Lord sees the broader picture, right? And when we add all the pieces of the puzzle together, it makes sense. It's just like it makes sense even to us, but there were pieces of the puzzles that the Lord was adding together, and it culminated for me to this point. So I think it's important even to record and to write down, have a diary, or if not, like, record voice messages every time we have any kind of experience with the Lord. It can even be like we're just reading the scriptures, and man, something is just popping out. It's like I can't I get moved past this. There's a reason for that. Get deeper. There's a promise out there, and it says, if you seek me, you'll find me. If you seek me with all your heart. And I think that is an amazing promise. The devil is very scared of that because the Lord has promised us that we will find him if we seek him with all our heart. That is why, Danny, the devil, is very busy keeping us busy, keeping us running around, sometimes in circles. And it looks like we're so productive, so busy, only to find out the main reason for that is So we wouldn't get to this point of seeking, because you know how it is. Like, I mean, it takes time, it takes an effort. Like as I said earlier, cancel that Netflix subscription, because I really I wanna get there. I wanna get to a place of I wanna know, I wanna seek, and there's a promise. I believe the Lord is faithful, and He's gonna keep His promise. It's on us to seek from our whole heart and devotion, and he's gonna speak.
Yeah. That's yeah. Okay. So then you went back to Uganda. So to you, it wasn't necessarily that specific location, but it was, I guess, the African continent, or it was just the people that are in Africa. Sounds like that
Right.
was you wanted to be. So what,
Yeah.
I'm just curious, what did your parents say when you said I'm going to Africa to live out what I believe is my calling?
Yeah, that was not exactly what they wanted to hear. And it's not only that, it's worse. Remember, I'm in my second year of university. I'm studying structural engineering, and I'm dropping everything to go to Africa.
Yeah. Mm,
Malaria,
yeah.
disease.
Yeah.
Like, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so of course, I can't say it otherwise, out of love, they were very concerned. And they had a reason to be concerned. But I guess both my mom and dad, and I think maybe this is more my mom's side, but more my mom and dad, they knew me because I'm their son, and they knew that, if they're gonna just say, you know what, you're not gonna do anything, we're just gonna you're gonna stay here, you're gonna do this and that, and we're gonna cage you, right? We're gonna put you in this box. I'm gonna escape. I'm gonna get out, and I'm gonna say goodbye. I'm not seeing you again. It's like I was very strong-willed, and you couldn't just tell me. I hated hearing the words because I told you so. I'm like, don't tell me I told you so. Explain to me, sit down with me, make me understand. And I promise I'm gonna listen, and I wanna listen, I wanna know. But don't just say something like, you do this because I told you so. I mean,
Mm,
that makes me so annoyed. I wanna leave right now. So they knew that. They
mhm.
knew that I'm wired like that. So of course, and I mean, I find out later, even my mom is confessing, like, you don't know how much I cried. Like I wept and I wept and I wept for you. And even some of the neighbors my mom and dad had, like, they said they were down, completely down. They're telling me now when they see me, it's like, you don't know what you made your parents go through. And I understand that, but I have to also follow, like the conviction that I have. So was it easy for them? Nah, absolutely not. Did they have wisdom to navigate this? I am very grateful that they respected that decision with tears in their heart. Tears I didn't see, but they definitely were wept. And then, of course, also what's gonna come, what's gonna happen to our son, and Africa is, how it is, it's a charming continent to come and go, but to live there, and they didn't know anything. They didn't know where I
Yeah.
was going, and so it was hard. It was definitely hard.
Yeah. I can imagine, like you said, I mean, one you're in university and now you're gonna pick up and go. Can that possibly gone easy,
Yeah.
easy conversation?
No.
Okay, so you
No.
ended up in Africa. It sounds like you didn't even know where you were gonna end up or what you're gonna do, but you had to go by faith. So maybe unpack that for us a little bit.
Yeah, so before in the beginning it was kind of like clear because I was going to this lady, this that was leading this organization, and then she put me in charge with the pastor. Then I started doing these crusades. So it was definitely like we had something going that was clear, and it was beautiful. It was very beautiful. I learned a lot. I for the first time in my life, Danny, I saw healing slide before my eyes. I saw people being set free from demons. I mean, I was like, it's like I don't know about this. And if someone is to tell me, I'm like, maybe I'm not even believing you. But when you see it right before your eyes, I mean, and I prayed personally. I prayed in one of the crusades. I prayed for a girl. She came with her brother who was young, like a baby brother, and they tied them behind with like a bed sheet. You know how they do it. They carry their siblings
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
And she was Muslim. She had, like the head was covered. And she came to the meeting, and my friend, Pastor Sam, he was preaching in that event. But then
So this was it was an open air crusade.
open a crusade, yes, yes.
Anybody could come.
Anybody could come,
Okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
And
Okay.
then we had music, we had the big speakers, so people they just knew something is happening there. Of course, we also had some, we had some advertisements on the radio and so on. So we do advertise a little bit, but people just knew. So she came because she knew there was a meeting there, and when after the message was preached, the gospel was preached, there was the call, like if anyone is sick, if anyone is being disturbed by demons, yeah, or if anyone wants to be prayed for, and if anyone wants to give their life to Jesus, please come in front, would like to pray for you. So, like we were not only me and Pastor Sam, we had like a team, and it just so happened that I was also there. We were in front, we lined up. So this girl comes to me because I was just kind of closer to her. And she, through translation, of course, there's some other guys who were only translating, and she's telling me that her brother is very hot, and she just says he has malaria. Like she just says that, and if I can pray for him. So at this time, I don't have, like, I don't know how. I mean, I've seen Pastor Sam do it. It's like one of the first meetings we had, like it's still the beginning. And I mean, I just know that you pray, you put your hand on the person and you just pray, in the name of Jesus, be healed. So I did that. I just put my hand on the brother, and he was hot. Yeah, he was for sure hot. And I said, okay, in the name of Jesus, be healed. Malaria, go in Jesus' name. And because that's what she said, that's what I prayed, and then nothing happened. It's like okay, I prayed, and then there was, okay, is somebody else, and I said thank you and so on. She left, and then I prayed for someone else that has come. So that was it that day. But usually these meetings are for 3 or 4 days, like a whole weekend. And we usually start like even on Thursday with preparation, the first meeting, and then the whole weekend. And she came back the next day. And not only that, she came back because the crowd is so big. You don't know. Like I don't know that she's there. I don't see her,
Yeah.
but I see her when she's going on the stage, because Pastor Sam had Pastor Sam or another person from the team. I can't remember exactly. They have announced. That's usually how, before we start teaching, we say, okay, is there anyone that has a testimony, even on that day or on the day after? Is there anyone that has a testimony that would like to share? So I'm seeing this girl, and she's coming up, and she's speaking the mic, and she's saying, yes, I have a testimony I want to share. Yesterday I was here, and my baby brother was sick, and they prayed for my brother, and I went back home, and after a while the fever went, and my brother was fine, and I came back because I want to give my life to Jesus.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I'm like shocked. I mean grateful, of course, but it's like I'm so overwhelmed, and I'm, it's like, wow, like the brother is healed, and she wants to now to give because she knows the Lord did that, and so it's those kind of meetings, and it was very powerful. And why I'm sharing this, because this was a foundation even for what we are doing now, and it has taken different shapes and forms, as I shared in the beginning, but this has remained, like the boldness to pray for those who are sick, and to even cast out demons. I have so many videos, even on my phone, that I carry, that just even to show people that don't believe, like, hey, see, like it's real. Um, so basically, after these 2 years, I was involved quite heavily in this open air crusades. That is when I felt the call to move up north. And because you asked about it, like how, this
Yeah.
guy, this
How
Romanian
did you
guy,
end
and
up?
so on. So I only had that, and now this way the story gets quite interesting, because I had that call to go up north, but then of course it's just going really central, and then up north is where the war was. There was a civil war there, and it was very, very terrible. And people in the south would always say, "Ah, don't go up north," like, because there was war there, and there was a lot of affliction.
So,
So
since you brought that up, just for my own knowledge, there was a civil war in Uganda, right?
there
I'm
was,
kind of I'm
yeah,
ignorant
there
here.
was.
Sorry.
There was all kind of guerrilla wars, and then all kinds of, like trying to take over the government, kind of like rebel groups trying to take over the government, very similar to what's happening in Sudan and in Congo. It's all about that. It's all about power politics. Like, we want this group, the president is doing a bad job, we want this group to rule the country. So it was
So
very similar.
I assume because of that, you mentioned orphans. Is that one of the reasons why there's a lot of orphans?
Yeah, it's part of it. It's part of it. Unfortunately, it's also the fact that yeah, there's definitely like parents that have died.
Mm,
So the kids have remained orphans in that way. But unfortunately, Daniel, there's also a lot of people who just abandon their kids. And I mean, even I'm talking because my mother-in-law, the mother of my wife, is raising some of those kids, and some of them I know they're from prostitutes. Like they just know she's a good lady, so she just
they
they
give
they
it to her.
take they just even drop it in front of the house. They don't even
Yeah.
give it to her, and then just leave, like very,
Yeah.
like. But then there's the family is very, very much under attack, and fathers are not there.
Hmm.
Fathers, polygamy is still accepted, and this like, someone can have, five, three, seven wives, and all these kids that you're not able to raise. You're not able to take care of. You're not able to be responsible of, and of course with that comes hardship.
Yep.
Right now, Uganda is one of the youngest nations in the world. We have, I think, 40 something percent, over 45% population that is under 12 years old.
Really.
So basically, almost half of the country is
Kids.
kids, exactly. and
Wow.
and that tells something. That
Yeah.
tells that not only that there's a heavy multiplication, but also, of course, with that, who's gonna take care of those kids? You know?
So sounds like you kind of got involved with the ministry, and because I'm assuming when you first got there, it's kind of like you're scratching to figure out what does God want me to do, and I'm just gonna be faithful. I'm assuming, I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like I talked to some people, so I'm just gonna do whatever is in front of me and whatever opens a door. And I'm assuming that's how you got into the sort of the Crusades. Is that accurate or?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the Crusades. I didn't expect that. For sure, if that's the direction you're taking. But I mean, there was definitely a heart for the gospel. I carry that with me, and I, talking about making life count. For me, to this day, is still the same. I strongly believe that the gospel is the power of God to save,
Yep.
and if we just it's like we gotta offer truth that saves and that transforms. Otherwise, we can help people, but then long term, I don't know how much we've helped if they don't find the truth. And not to bash on any other people that are doing any other work. It's just I'm just saying personally, I see that there is a very strong need for the gospel to be shared. So I had that, and the Crusades kind of fueled that. It's like it
Hmm.
fueled that. And then yes, but you're right. I was just trying to figure out. I'm here, and I told this lady, so she put me in charge. Figure out like exactly what you said. To just be faithful what's in front of me. But then,
Hmm.
of course, after some time, I have this calling to move up north. And
Yep.
up north, I don't know anyone.
Yep.
This organization doesn't have anything up north, and it was one of the organization also has they had like vocational schools, so orphanages, vocational schools, and then all this great number of kids that they're sponsoring, both in the vocational school but even scattered in the country. So one of the we were playing soccer also with while I was there, with the guys at
Hmm.
the vocational schools. So one of them who I knew while playing soccer, we were talking, and I was sharing with him about this, and he said, "Man, I'm from the north. Like I can even just take you up north and show you around, and if you want, I can just even give you the key to my house. Like I'm
Hmm.
here studying. You can just go and live there in my house while I'm here studying." And I'm like, "What is going on?" And like it seemed too smooth.
Hmm.
And actually, that's what happened. Only that I didn't know. His house was in the village, and it was a hut. That was the only small
So it
detail.
wasn't like an Airbnb
No,
experience.
no, yeah, but nonetheless, he took me. And Danny, I lived in a hut for about 6 months in the village, not knowing a single word that was spoken. It was an adventure, man. It was sign language, and I did a lot of things that were so uncultural. Like, his mom would kind of take care of me, like being responsible for me, and she would see me going with a jerry can to carry water from the well, and she would be so upset, like, why are you doing this? And I'm like, but this is I'm using this water, for cleaning, for washing, and so on, and I need it. And I was like, no, you're not allowed to do this. It's only the women who are supposed to do this.
Oh, really?
But all through the sign, and like I didn't know why she was upset. I had to, communicate with my friend, and then when it came to like cooking and cleaning, I'm not allowed to do it. So I had like you could say a comfortable life, whether I liked it or not. Like there was
Hmm.
food, someone that was cleaning, cleaning washing my clothes, it was interesting. It was weird and interesting because I didn't want to be served, but it's like I had to.
Hmm. That's interesting. So, because I was in Africa anyway, and I realized a lot of the women, yeah, I am very familiar with the water crisis also a little bit in Kenya, for instance, where people have to walk. So, how long did you have to walk to get water? Just
Yeah, it was a distance, but not outrageous. Maybe a mile. Yeah, about
so
a
there was
mile.
no, I don't know, there was no village fountain or something, no well
They
or
they
any.
what they do, there is typically schools have wells and
Mhm.
hospitals have wells.
Hmm.
So if you're, quote unquote, lucky enough for your village to have a school, you might get a well as well. But then, of course, you don't necessarily, some people don't necessarily stay close to the school. So even if it's in the village, it can still be 3, 4, 5 miles away from where you
But I mean,
are.
even if you have to go to the neighbor just to get water, it's a huge problem. And I'm assuming, are you going to a well or are you going to a pond? Where were you
It's
getting the
it's
water?
both. It's both. Where I was, there was an actual like borehole with the pump, with a manual pump.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
That's where we did where I was. There was like a
Mm-hmm.
proper kind of water pump, manual pump. But there's also what you mentioned is also sometimes the water is not clean, but it's the only thing that's
Yeah.
available. So
I didn't expect that. Like I said, I am a little bit familiar with the water crisis. That's a whole nother discussion. But so you actually experienced this,
had
and
the
you were
hand,
telling me
yeah.
that your friend's mom was like, "What are you doing?" I
She
see.
was so annoyed that I didn't know why. Like, what did I do wrong? Like, just you're fetching water. That's what you're
Yeah.
doing wrong.
So tell us, okay, what happened after that? Like, where did this, what happened? How?
So, of course, yes, it was because I was following the direction from the Lord, though it seemed like it's quite crazy where this was going. I mean, even for him to come and offer that place, and then also for me to know that I'm supposed to be there. But eventually, of course, I became part of the everyday life of people. And when they were going to the garden, I was going to the garden, and I didn't make it such a big deal. It was a huge deal, but the main reason is a huge deal is because I have a different color of a skin than everyone else around me. And then that's first. Second, there was not a single other white skin colored person around you that lives in the hut and is doing what you're doing. So you must be a spy. You know, I hear that all the
Hmm.
time. You heard that, there were some boys that they knew a little bit of English. So it was like, people are really wondering what you're doing here, man. So of course, even though my friend brought me, introduced me, still it's not normal. It's like you come and visit, right? You stay for 3 days, you stay for a week, but you live here. Yeah, it's not we're not familiar with this. And then I was just trying to get some connections, get some friends, of course, learn a little bit of the language. I finally found two boys that spoke English, or like a little bit of English, and then I went from there, and they introduced me to their families, and then I told them why I'm there, that I want to share about Jesus. I was like this, just this journey that I was definitely not in control of, and it was kind of unfolding naturally, of course, through some struggles like the language barrier, and then also the fact that people were very skeptical of my presence, but eventually we moved past this, and they saw me like as a guy who really wants to learn and be part of everyday life. And that's what I wanted. So I'm happy that in the end, we all go to that place. And we ended up doing mission trips with these two boys, and they took me to some other places up there in the north, some very remote villages, and I was sharing first with their families, like some of their family, like the dad of one boy was far away, and then the other guy, he was called Holyfield. He didn't have really a family, but he had some relatives. He took me, and I was just sharing with them about Jesus. And I already learned that from these open air crusades. I had a little bit of foundation, but it was much more one on one, like going to a home, going to a family, sitting down and talking to the people. And I loved it, brother. It was
Hmm.
in that place that the Lord also really spoke to me through his word. You're out there in the hut, you have a candle, and by seven, latest 7:30 is dark, so you're like, just time to sleep. You just stay a little bit longer at the light of the candle, but you also don't want to use it all because you want to still use it tomorrow. So
Hmm.
it's just beautiful. Then you wake up early. I was spending time with the Lord. I had like a small bed and nothing really. I had no other property. It was like such a simple life, but such a deep life, where I was just having a communion in a presence with the Lord. And I loved it. I just loved that time.
Hmm. Hmm. Interesting. Very, very cool. Um, uh, I mean, I think there's a lot to probably even unpack and discuss there. Like, I'm curious, even how did you accommodate yourself with sleeping in the hut, which probably didn't have any windows and bugs and
Yeah, oh
mosquitoes or
yeah,
whatever?
oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. So then what happened after that?
So after that, I got into trouble, and because I was generally a person who trusted others and what they're saying. And then eventually, because we were in the village, but we had a bigger town that was about 10 kilometers away, so not too far. And I would come sometimes to this bigger town. And I met some guy who seemed genuine, but was like a downhill from there. And he just told me he has all these kids he wants to help, and they're really vulnerable, and if I can do anything to help, it would be so good. And so I just kind of I just took interest in that, and I started getting more involved with him, with his kids. And then eventually it became something even more like bigger than that, because I rented, through the help of my friends, we rented a house, and we were having like an orphanage, you could say. We had food there. We were sending the kids to the school. We were paying their school fees. So it was like a mini orphanage, but there were uh, between 15. I have a picture from that, but I think around 15 kids um, that
Hmm.
we were helping back then. But the sad part in this, because it sounds really good. Like, what do you mean? Like, what's wrong with that? Is that I just found out after about a year, so it took me a while. I found out that actually none of those kids are orphans. Some of them were his own kids from
Hmm.
different relationships.
Hmm.
Some were for his brother, others for his auntie, and it was just all a hoax. And
Hmm.
that what I mean by that is these kids had like a fake story, and because it was post-war, the time that I was there, he was like, yeah, his father died in the war, and this old lady, this old mama found him and took care, nursed him, but she's dead also, things like that. It's like it made sense because the war was there, and his father was shot, his mother was killed, or whatever. all kinds of stories that were, but then it's like I think I just heard like slight variations, because when you're with someone, you're like, of course you're there. So I heard slight variations, and he also had people from the U.S. Like really donating quite a lot. So
Mm.
I was the person on ground, but I had no connection with the donors from America. And then I found out actually that he was getting paid for those kids, and I was also paying for the same kids. And it's like, there's these double payments for the same person, and it was just not right. And then the stories are not true. It was like a sad thing, and the kids were still caught in the middle, which they're innocent,
Yeah.
and they didn't do anything wrong. But of course, you can't tell someone, please help me to buy food for this orphan, and that kid is not an orphan. You can't do that. Like, that's a lie.
Yeah.
So where do they need help? Yes, they do, but let's not say they're orphans, and try to make it worse. So basically, I had to expose the whole thing, and it was quite messy. Somehow I just got a hold of an email from his contacts. I wrote, I said, just guys, all this is a lie, and so on.
Mm.
And so it turned really bad, but then I had to do it. And of course, people also lost credibility in me. I mean, I had all this money coming in, and then I had to like to confront people and say it's a lie. It's
So
a
you
lie.
you kind of started fundraising in Romania, I assume, on behalf of these kids,
Right.
because
Right.
because of the stories you were being told, but it sounds like some of them were not true. Okay, but that sort of probably opened up, I don't know, I'm assuming some work for you, or got the ball rolling, I guess.
Yeah, he got the ball rolling. The Lord is interesting in the way he does his things, because from there, this guy that of course, we had to break up, and I mean, to this day, I love him and so on, but to this day, like, we're really not connecting. But he sees me as someone who did great damage to him. But he introduced me to an American pastor. And it's like, if there's one good thing that happened, is that
Hmm.
connection with
Hmm.
this American pastor. And the pastor saw me one time in the market buying mattresses and this food, and he asked me, "What are you doing, man?" And I said, "Hey, I'm working with this guy, and he were doing this orphanage and the kids." And I was like, I said, "Brother, take care. I know that guy, and I don't trust him. I really don't trust him." But I was like, "Yeah, but you don't know him. I know him. Now all the kids, I know the story. It's like." So I didn't really take heed. But of course, when all this went downhill, guess where I went? I went back to him. And and he just like, "Man, I'm so sorry." Like, he keeps coming here, he's asking for money, and they had this American pastor had people visiting him, like, American churches and American friends, and it's like he's always asking for money. Any person he sees, he's asking. So I just don't trust him. I even
Hmm.
told him he can't come anymore. So it's like, so sorry and so on. So I
Yeah.
share with him, but then of course, we became closer in that way, because now I was trusting him. I was like, thank you, sorry for not listening, but then, yeah, like, I'm here now, sort of. And he just kind of took me and said, "Hey, you're welcome," and so on. So I started fellowshipping in the church they had. It was just like a under the tree kind of church. It's
Hmm.
like very basic beginnings, simple beginnings. But then eventually, it turned out to be very beautiful actually. And just like just like Pastor Sam in the central part of the country, he was the next person that was mentoring, that was gonna mentor me, and I didn't know, but the Lord had his people, and he really
Mm.
mentored me in a beautiful way. He took me in, and we started working together, at the church first, and then um, they started the discipleship training school, and of course I was part of that as a student, and then the first class as a student, second class as a student, and then third class as a helper, fourth class, I was
Hmm.
just kind of having more leadership, and then after I became the director of the school, and just leading the whole discipleship school. Later after that, it was he also, like, I became also the main pastor of the church, and we did a lot of things. We had a Mexican restaurant, we
Oh,
were
wow.
trying to be, yeah, we just to help support the mission, and
Yeah,
the
yeah.
the the heart was really just to send people out like as missionaries. And then, of course, when you send them out, you have to take care of them. So we had
Yeah.
that as a business income generating for that,
Hmm.
provision for that to happen, for the missionaries to be sent. So, yeah, it was very beautiful. And then we started doing some big things, like even farming. Someone donated like a very large piece of property, so we started planting for the same purpose, to raise funds to send people out for missions
Hmm. Just like
from with
self-sustain.
self-sustain, like from within, like raise money from within to send people from here as missionaries, which is like that's what we're doing now, in a
That's
in a
cool.
different way, but maybe smaller scale than what I was doing with him. And the reason I'm talking like is because I think it was uh, about 3 years ago. He left back to the States in 2017. So that's 3 plus 5, 8 years ago. And then about 3 years ago is when we stepped out of the ministry, and kind of handed over to the next generation. And it was also something like, it was a journey. It was a process. We know the Lord had us go through there, but then we also know He called us to step out and to really focus more in just traveling, preaching, doing apostolic work. Because Daniel, to tell you the truth, I was a very busy man. I had my office, I had my desk, I had people coming, I had, budgets approved, I had, like overseeing, business, church, I was preaching, I was doing a lot of things.
Mm.
And then, there's a danger to that also, to doing a lot of things and not being effective. Some people can like multifunction like that. To me, it was just being busy, really, and it was fruitful. It was beautiful, just in the sense of it's like we're continuing what was handed over to us, but what are we supposed to do? So even that in itself was just a transition, just the way it was with the kids, with the orphans, just the way it was like with the organization in the central, going through that with Pastor Sam, Open Air Crusades, then it's like just a puzzle again. The Lord is just building something. We're on a journey, and then we're here now full time, full blown, apart from when we have people coming and wanting to do safaris and stuff. But we try to minimize that. Like, we're not, like, we want to really focus on the gospel. We want to focus on getting to these unreached places. And my heart and my desire, my greatest desire, is actually to set up a place where we can really train missionaries. You know how US and Europe has these missionary kind of bases and missionary schools where people can go and learn how, like cross culture, and how to become a missionary, how to be send a missionary to all these nations. We want to do that locally, and we want to send local missionaries to all these northern countries like South Sudan, Sudan, Algeria, Morocco, Egypt, and then in the east, Ethiopia, Somalia, these hard places where like people like us, people like me, just because of my passport and and the color of my skin, I can just easily get in trouble. But because of the nature of them being from like sort of neighbors, and I mean, I cannot cross into Congo without a visa. But when I go with my friends, they're like Congolese. It's like how do you guys do it? It's like we're just Africans, man. We're just crossing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like how do they see you and are like you gotta pay, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and they're from here. So there's advantage. Of course, we come with also what the Lord has taught us, and that's needed. The all the experience we had is needed, but then if we're able to penetrate to these places also by sending local missionaries, man, let's do it. Let's do that.
So you're saying some of the what you're doing now you learned also under this pastor in the discipleship school that sounds like was happening. I like the idea of the restaurant. I thought that was pretty intriguing, by the way. A
Mm.
Mexican restaurant in Uganda. That's an interesting one.
Brother, it
Uh,
was amazing. It was really amazing.
really, people
Yeah,
like
yeah.
they
Well,
desire
it
like
was
Mexican food.
no, well, it was the strategy was because it was a conflict zone. UN was there, NGOs were
Mm,
there, NGO workers were there, and these are Western people.
mm,
So it was not a Mexican restaurant for locals. Locals would
mm,
come, but like there were normal prices, like Mexican prices. It wasn't like a very cheap restaurant.
mm.
So
Wow.
so the target was not necessarily for the locals.
Mm,
Some would come, but then the target was just
mm,
Westerners, even missionaries, having a
mm.
nice place to dine
So you
and
had this experience of running a restaurant. Which I'm into a little bit of the food business type of stuff. So
well,
that's a tough
experience.
one.
He started it, we just kind of took over, and
Hmm.
it's much easier to take over than to start.
Then to start, yeah.
Yeah.
And then it sounds like then you moved from that place to a different sort of part in the north, and now you're kind of out on your own, starting
Yeah.
a discipleship school.
Yeah, we're
Or
we're not on our own necessarily, but we're not we're not having like a church building, or like a building, like a base right now. We have networks all over the country. We're focused in the north, but we have networks especially in the Muslim area. So if you look on the map, there is in the north west. There is right there. It's a corner of bordering Sudan and Congo. Sudan in the north and Congo in the west, and that whole patch there of area is Muslim.
mhm.
Um,
Yep.
so we're focusing there, but we're also focusing in other places in the north over the years, because we've done this now, for at least the last 3 years since we stepped out. I guess we've been doing it even before, but now we're much more focused. And so we have networks of people and house churches and house groups. And as I said in the beginning, this discipleship groups that we are really looking at multiplying and starting a movement, because this is much harder to to close down. When you invite me to your home and we invite two more people and we're just, we're hanging out, but also we're reading the Bible together and growing our faith. And if we do that in an environment that oppresses Christianity, and we're just regular folks that no one knows about really, but we're we're really reading the Bible. It has a great advantage than to opening up a building in a public place
Mm.
and calling it a church and saying we
Mm-hmm.
have come here to
Yeah, so
preach
it's
about
like
Jesus.
relational and incognito.
Exactly. It's aimed at keeping it small, but looking at it multiplying its roots through faithful men and also women who share with others, just like Timothy, just like Paul and Timothy.
Hmm. So it's very kind of ground roots approach, like hand-to-hand combat, if you would, versus
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's
And we
yeah.
we are tracking it, so we have like regular regional meetings, because it's really spreading. When I say movement, it's not just a word that I'm throwing in there. It's really spreading. And last time there were over 70 groups that we met, we discussed, and there were over 70 of these groups that have different shapes and forms and different number of people, but then they're meeting and they're reading the Bible, and they're meeting in different places. So we're really focusing on that, on wanting to see, okay, who are the main guys that are overseeing? Let's get together, let's talk, let's see where we can break ground even more. So right now it's all just we're just meeting once in a while regularly with all the leaders, but also as a family we get together as a family and also with other people, and we visit, and sometimes churches have come up, like an actual church that was built by them, and we visit it, we encourage it, we also go out with them on the streets, in the markets, in the hospital. We share the gospel. We pray for the sick, so that that momentum keeps going. Like, hey, don't forget you're here for that. You're here to reach out. Let's not just now all kind of come in and stay cozy here, but let's continue to reach out. Remember how it was with you when we started. It was just a group. You met together, you shared the Bible, you invited others. Let's continue that. So that's kind of like the nature of the ministry, and now we're really looking into expanding and seeing the people we can send to these regions and more north countries.
More remote,
Yeah,
or yeah, yeah. That's really cool because I mean, it's in a way kind of how Jesus approached discipleship and spreading the gospel was sort of pouring into people versus just tossing water and try to fill the bottles that way. It's not efficient. So, yeah, very cool. So, I wanted to ask you how did you end up meeting your wife, if you can share with us?
yeah, yeah. So
So
I'm
you
still in
fully got like that's it. I'm staying. Like I'm getting marrying here. How
one-way
did that
ticket, one-way
one way
ticket,
ticket?
one-way ticket. I didn't have a return flight, which at that time it was allowed. Now Uganda, if you're just coming to visit, they're asking for a return, like they're getting serious about the
Mm,
tourist visas. But at
mm-hmm,
that time you could be a tourist with a one-way ticket and was okay, and that's what I
mm-hmm.
did. Yeah, I was determined, and the Lord also blessed that. Remember, I was in the central part of the country, and we were about this organization was about 40 kilometers, 40, how much is that? About 30 miles away from the capital city, which is Kampala. So Kampala was this big place full of stuff. So every now and then, we would go there, try to look for some clothes, and that's what I did. I found out this thrift store belonging to a lady from Sweden. So a
Mm.
really nice lady. She's bringing clothes from Europe, from the US, very good brands that I recognize, good quality. And I'm like, this is gold. Finding this place, you know. And I really love the place. I love the setting. I love the clothes. And I also loved this 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 beautiful face that I saw coming to me and asking, "How can I help you?"
At the store.
At the store. So everything was beautiful, including this lady. And I mean, I didn't say anything, you know, I'm just trying to keep it cool. But to be honest, Danny, it's like, man, it's the most beautiful girl I've ever seen, and hands down, you know.
Nice. Yep.
And and she's gorgeous. She's working there. She's doing her job. You know, she's acting professional. How can I help you? But because I was so insecure, you know, I didn't want to get close to any girl because I knew I'm so weak. I'm just gonna fall in love with the first girl that comes to me, you know. So I said, no, 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 I don't need help. I don't need help. I'm good, you know, and it's okay and so on. So she's like, okay, fine, you know. Like she just kind of left me, and then, but then, every month or so, I would pop back there because I needed another pair of jeans, and she's still there, you know, and I still see that beautiful face. And I think sometimes she would come, at times she would not come. She for her, she said, you know, like it was not a big deal. But you know, the story is a little bit, a little bit more than, a little bit more than that,
So you're
because
saying she didn't remember you? Is that what?
no, no, not that she didn't remember, but she was like, yeah, I didn't really like, you know, care about you, you know, like whatever.
Hmm.
But she actually dreamt. So she had a dream. This is before, you know, I was there, before she saw me, she had a dream. And in the dream, she saw me exactly the way I was looking. And I was gonna marry her. And this is crazy, right? Like, I don't even know this girl. And she never mentioned, like, this actually tells me, even when we're married, like, she kept it really in her heart. She's telling me this, and I'm like, so you knew this, and you're like, you never. And it's like, yeah, I didn't say anything because, you know, I didn't want to, you know, make it happen. Like, if this is a dream, it has to, you know, it has to unfold. So she's keeping it cool, and she's not impressed by me or anything, but she's doing her job. And eventually I just say, okay, fine, you know, like, yeah, like, I'm looking for, you know, like Lee Cooper or whatever. And, you know, for you guys it might be like, it's cheap brands, but for us it was really good. Or Levi's. If you find a pair of Levi's, that's like gold, man. Like it's like it's a good pair of clothing. So, you know, and she's like, yeah, we just brought some stock. Let me take you around. So she helped me find some good stuff. I'm like, oh, this is actually helpful, you know. This is helping me. Like she's actually helping me. And then I did something crazy. And I said, hey, look, you've helped me, and I'm very grateful. Just just pick something from the store, and it's on me. You know, I mean, I just didn't think that this is a big deal. Like
Hmm.
someone is nice to you, you try to be nice to them. Now, that was a big deal. That was a big deal. It was a big deal for her.
For her.
Yeah, it was a big deal for her. And the reason it was a big deal for her is because I wish she was here to say this in person.
Hmm.
It's more powerful, but it's like all most of her life people took from her, and I can't go into details,
Hmm.
but people took from her, and it's like Men took from her, people took from her, business owners took from her. Like it was just taking, and then this guy is giving something,
Hmm.
and to her that was like a big thing, that I just, I don't know, like how is it to receive? I've
Hmm.
only been robbed, and now someone is giving, and she started opening up, very unusual, opening up in the store, telling me about her life. And I mean, we're between like lines of closes, and we're just sharing very deep personal stuff. And of course, she's still pretending like she's helping me because she's during work hours. You can't just talk to
Hmm.
someone like that. But we're trying to move and so on, like to like act cool. But she's sharing a lot of stuff with me. And you know what happened, Danny? The things she was sharing were so deep, were so personal that a stranger, it doesn't do that. Like a stranger doesn't just shares with you things like that. Though, of course, it was not the first time. Still, I'm still a stranger, right? Like I'm just a customer, you know. And then that really shocked me. I'm like, who is this stranger sharing these deep things with me? And because it was the things that she was sharing were really painful and sad, something activated in me. And that was compassion. And that was a desire for her to be saved. And yes, she's gorgeous lady, very good looking, very beautiful, but still behind that, beyond that, I have a desire for her to be saved. And one of her lines, one of her words were, all my life people took from me. I have no friends. I don't trust anyone. And I remember saying in the shop, I said, "Hey, look, I know someone you can trust. There is someone you can trust." And that got her attention. Because, like, I don't know anyone. And I'm telling her there's someone. And I told her, the person you can trust is called Jesus. His name is Jesus. I was like, what do you mean? I'm like, he's trustworthy, he's faithful. So I just started sharing with her about Jesus. And she was just absorbing, taking everything in. She comes from her father's a Muslim. Her mother was Catholic, but not very religious. So very interesting mix there.
Hmm.
And her father had the other wives,
Hmm.
not just her mother. Even to this day, he has different wives. As I said, polygamy is accepted here. Um, so I'm sharing this with her, and and I'm just seeing her genuine desire to know the Lord, to know Jesus. And eventually after, this kind of ended there, and then I went and I came back, and of course I really wanted now to see how she's doing. And she asked me for a Bible. I gave her a Bible. She started reading it, and she's just absorbing everything that she's reading, and then she's asking questions. But up until this point, everything is done in the store. So it's quite a crazy kind of environment to share and talk in between the lines, going here and there. And eventually I asked her one time, I said, "Hey, look, like there's a break, I think it was like a lunch break or something." And I said, "Hey, let's just go and eat outside." Because they were eating from the store, the food that the store had. And we went out, and that's actually when I gave her the Bible that I brought, and it was a special
Hmm.
time, and she really opened up
Hmm.
even more and deeper. And I just really wanted her to be saved, man. I loved her her openness. Like she was open, she was an open book, her vulnerability, and then I just wanted her to be saved. So that's where I met her. I met her in the
Hmm.
thrift store. And what started as like, oh, wow, this is very beautiful, beautiful girl. It turned into I just want her to really know the Lord.
And 5 kids later, huh?
And 5 kids. Well, we four, and we've also adopted one, so we have four. Let me say 5 kids, but one is adopted, so 4 kids of our own. Yeah, 5 kids later. It's it took some time because she asked for my number, and that put all my shields and guards up. When she asked for that, I was like, I'm not ready for this. And I said, look, like I am the one who's supposed to ask for your number, not you to ask for my number. Like that's I just said that, and
Yeah,
she took
yeah.
she took it as a very rude thing, and so it was really difficult after this because when I was ready, it was like a strange thing. I liked her, of course. I really liked her, but I didn't feel like I was ready to just to start talking on the phone. When you're in a public place, the discussion is a little bit different. When you're on the phone, you're like, I don't know, I just feel like you give space for like romantic stuff and romantic discussions. And that's how I felt it anyway. I think you can still be professional, but I felt like I was not able to. So so then when after some time I was processing and so on, and I went and I said, hey, look, I went and I was ready to give my number to her, but I went to the store and she wasn't there. I asked the manager, he said, hey, she's no longer working here. And
No
I was
way.
like, what is going on? Like she just left the place. And the manager said, hey, look, there's that lady there. Just go and ask her. Maybe she knows. She knows because the manager couldn't help me like as to how to find her. And also with phone numbers and stuff, they don't really like keep each other and so on. And I went to this lady and I asked her, do you know this small little girl, called Diane? Like I'm looking for her and so on. Of course, like it looked very weird, but I did it anyway. And she said, yeah, I know her. I know her. She's actually my sister. I came here and I replaced
No
her.
way. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's how it was. So her sister replaced her at work, and um, she was I think no longer working. I don't remember exactly what was happening. She was taking a break. She was no longer working, but she didn't come back. So she's like, okay, I wrote my phone number on a piece of paper. I gave it to her. I said, okay, can you please give this to your sister? You know what happened? She went back home. Of course, she told her what happened, and Diane was like, throw that paper away. I don't need
Really?
it. Yeah.
That's
Like,
interesting.
so now he's coming and he's asking, he's willing to give my number to me, but when I asked him, he didn't want. She was very hurt by that. And then after that time, it was really good gospel wise, but this was, I think we both felt this was going to be different once we exchanged contacts. I think we felt like it was gonna take another turn, and I was not
Mm,
ready when she was, and when I was ready, she was not.
mm.
You know? Yeah.
Interesting. So
Mm.
I assume somehow you got in touch with her.
Man, it was months and months after. Of course, her sister kept the paper with my phone number, and um, she every now and then she just teased her out, like, "Why don't you give him a call?" So eventually, Diane said, "Look, if you like him, if you're in love with him, just call him yourself." Like, like don't bother me again with this. And I remember she said that she was like, I don't care. But eventually, I mean, her sister, uh, I'm very grateful for her, and we praise the Lord that she also came to faith after Diane, and it is through us, through sharing the gospel with her. But she really helped me a lot. And eventually she's like, fine, I'm gonna call him. So she calls me, and she's really upset still, because it's like, so this is how it works. When I'm asking, you're not, and then now you're all of a sudden you're ready, and we went through that, and then by that time it was like I had already, I think I was almost, or I was if not already in the north. Remember, this is happening in the central,
Uh-huh.
and then this with with the organization. But then I left to go to the north in the hut, in the hut of my friend. So I was getting
Uh-huh.
ready, or I was already there. So I
Uh-huh.
knew I knew I was not gonna see her in the shop again. And it's like, okay, this is a good time to give her the number. But then she wasn't ready. And yeah, I was already in the north, because it took months for her to call me. I was in the north already.
Hmm. Oh,
Yeah.
interesting story. Interesting.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so it's like love at first sight, sort of, in the first
It
store, huh?
was, man, it was for me, but it was quiet love at first sight.
But you're saying she was, at that time, she obviously didn't know the Lord, but sounds like she also had a Muslim background. So
Um,
probably had to
yeah,
dismantle some of the baggage.
not only that, brother, not only the Muslim background, she comes from a family that practices witchcraft,
Oh,
and she was
ouch.
next in line. She was next in line. So they already did rituals on her to
Really?
become the
Wow.
next witch doctor. You know, it was worth it, but the battle was big.
Hmm.
Because now she's the mother of my children, and she's my wife, my partner, the one I live with, the one I live my life with, and also very, very grateful, humble, loving, and she's an amazing woman. But then to get here, we had to fight
Hmm.
like spiritually, and even for each other, to hold on to each other, because there was a lot of deliverance that needed to take place.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's an interesting,
Mm,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah.
Very, very cool. I mean, we should probably have a podcast just on that. Just maybe have your wife talk about her experience with this. But so currently, right now, it sounds like, are you guys both involved in this together, or as a
Yeah.
full-time
Like
mission?
there's different gifting she's also prophetic. She's she has this like visions, and she hears from the Lord. What's interesting is, she was supposed to like follow the devil into witchcraft, and here it's very big. It's a big thing, and also people who are doing that are very rich also. So she
Mm-hmm.
gave that up, and it was not something easy to give up. But then it's like the Lord is helping, no, not helping. The Lord is kind of transforming into, instead of using that for the devil. Now the Lord gives her visions and dreams, and sometimes he's even she just knows, like, we're supposed to meet this person and the other person, and it sounds, even to me, it sounds like, how is that possible, because I'm not, like, even coming from a traditional kind of background, still you're having a lot of questions. But I've
Yeah.
learned over the years to trust that the Lord is really has gifted her in that. And then not only that, she also loves children. So we're having some kids that she kind of adopted, not like physical, but more spiritual. And also we're
Spiritual.
taking care of them with their needs, like schooling and so on. So she loves that. And then She's taking a break now, but she was working quite heavily with the prostitutes of the city we live in, and she has amazing testimonies of like ladies that have been rescued from the streets, and we help them to start businesses, and some of them are doing great, others not so great. Some have gone back, but there's a beautiful stories in reaching out to the prostitutes, and those are also something that she's it's like on her heart to do. But when we travel, like travel with we do family mission. We travel with the kids. We usually we have like a roof rack. We fill it up to the max, and we have tents and camping equipment and sound system, like a small sound system, and we just go where the Lord is calling us, and we camp with the kids, and it's beautiful. It's just like a simple, uh, simple life. We see the people where they are, and that is a big thing for them. That we stay with them, we camp with them, we eat with the same food they're eating, and we have to talk about it. Like there are no showers there are no toilets. We have to like we're just becoming like them. We have to go also somewhere to use the toilets with the hole and so on. Like I don't want to go into details, but we they really appreciate that. Like we are able to really go
Yeah,
low.
that's interesting. Yeah, so you really so that's the approach. Just living among wherever you go sounds like.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think it's important to have a partner that probably supports this, and not only that, but it's doing like parallel work with you, sounds like. So that is very cool.
Over the last year, the Lord has really spoken to me. Like it is you're saying this and you're seeing something. But it was mostly me traveling, and yeah, she did the work with the prostitutes, and the kids is not so heavily involved because you just take care of them, you pray for them, but something was definitely missing, and that is her coming along, that is the kids coming along, and last year the Lord really spoke to me. Like I have to take them. It's going to be hard because we have two little kids. We have a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, but it's like, yeah, it's harder, it's more challenging, but you have to do it. It's gonna bless them, and you're a unit, and it's been good. It's been so 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 good.
Very, very cool. I was thinking, as you're mentioning some of the things you're involved in, it sounds like including soccer, you're involved in soccer. Maybe there's some kind of a joint ministry we can do in the future since we are involved with soccer. Maybe that could be an icebreaker and whatever community you're working with. So let
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, for sure. We have actually done that. We recently actually we've done in partnership with another organization a football tournament. And you know how it was? It was like, hey, we see your passion for the Lord, for the gospel, for evangelism. We are organizing this soccer tournament, taking care of everything, and then we want to invite you to share the gospel with all these guys that are coming. It actually really worked out beautifully. And you know how it is. It's like there's access to other people you wouldn't have because they're coming for the soccer, but you
Yeah.
have them there also. So for sure, yeah, could be arranged. It could be something that can benefit, both the sport kind of field, but also we can get to reach to others and share with them the truth of our Lord.
We'll have to get in touch maybe when you come here to the States, when you get to visit, hopefully next time. Because there could be some cool things. I love the idea that you guys are also focusing on maybe involving business into some of the people you're discipling and kind of helping them continue to fish on their own. I like that. I love business overall, just the creativity of it. So I think it's great that sounds like you guys are trying to help some of these people that you are discipling fish for themselves. Um, yeah, that's very cool. What are some of the needs and maybe prayer requests that the audience can maybe contribute to?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. You know, I should have the answer right on the back of my hand, but I don't actually. The main need is vision. Um, I don't want to do things that don't bear fruit. So I would really love if people would just pray for vision. That I would stay just right at the center, right in the middle of what God wants us to do. And there are some, you know, there are some big things we want to do, of course, but we're taking steps. And I mentioned to you the idea of this missionary base, you know, that we can train missionaries there and send them out in the northern countries. That's something that's been on my heart, on our heart. And then I really feel it's time, you know, it's like it's been years now. And
Hmm.
now I just feel like the Lord is saying it's time to step into that, whatever that looks like. So I'm hoping and I'm confident that by next year, whatever that looks like, we're stepping into that, we're breaking ground into setting up this missionary sending base. So that's a like, you know, a specific prayer request and comes together with the vision of what the Lord wants us to do, the places, you know, the open doors for the gospel. And I would really love to see more, like just more open doors in the Muslim world. Um, it's often that there are people who are really needing the gospel the most. And there are some that, you know, were around us that I've heard they have rejected, or some are like, you know, like maybe still in Catholicism or other religions, in Hinduism, Buddhism. There's a lot of that also where we are, but
Yeah.
they have been exposed to the gospel. There was, you know, there was a chance, let me say, the truth was shared and they have denied it. What really it's like somehow touching is when someone is not given an opportunity, you know, like they haven't heard and no one is willing to go, you know, because there's war or because it's hard or because they don't allow foreigners, you know, all these kinds of reasons. And
Hmm.
they're valid, you know, they're valid reasons, but let's find a way. Let's
Yeah.
find a way to go.
Very good, Alex. We'll try to if you send we'll try to include your contact information below. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, wants to participate and help in the ministry, or just maybe ask you a question about whatever, including visiting Africa or
Of
Uganda.
course. Of course, brother.
Um, it's been a pleasure kind of talking to you and hearing your testimony and hearing what the Lord is doing through you guys there. Hope to meet you in person when you come visit the States. I want to thank you for your time and for taking this time to share with our audience what God has, your fascinating story. And like I said, the critical moments that you went through, um, I think it really resonated with me. Like I said, I could picture that time on the hill overseeing those people and that moment that's supposedly like pretty much like kind of change your course in life. I've had some similar moments like that, and that's why I really identified with that. And thank you for sharing that. I think some people that maybe had struggled with making decisions, and maybe if the Lord's speaking them, maybe they're not. I think you also help clarify a process or a way that they could hear from the Lord. If you have anything else that you want to share, maybe as his final thoughts with the audience.
I'm just very grateful, just for the invitation. And then very grateful that Danny, you're doing this. And you know, it's like exactly what we've spoken, right? Like making life count. And you know, we're there, boots on ground, you're here, sharing these stories, encouraging others, and sparking, igniting something. And I'm just grateful. Like I'm grateful for what you're doing. I'm grateful for the invitation. And I would say to you, to me, to all those who are listening, let's step into something more. Let's step into what the Lord is calling us. Yes, we have bills to pay. We have things that we're busy doing, but there's more. There's more. And I think, sadly, the more is what is, as Jesus said, it's like everything passes away, but my words are going to remain. And we know that our souls, our souls will live forever. So I guess if we're making life count, where I should focus more on, focusing on the soul that counts, that lives, that lasts forever, for eternity. We're made in the image of God, and we know that He wants us to be with Him. So yeah.
Amen, brother. Amen. And sort of before I let you go, I started this sort of thing called this segment called perspectives, which I'm just going to flash a word, if you would.
Okay.
I have about 10
Okay.
cards
Okay.
here.
All
And
right. All
maybe
right,
tell
Terence.
me in like a couple of seconds, the first thing that comes to mind. It doesn't have to be extensive. I'm just curious and
I just
what
have a
comes to mind.
question. Is it
Yes.
what comes to mind culturally, or what comes to mind just if is it as a person who lives in Uganda, or just as Alex? Or
As
does it matter?
Alex.
As Alex? Okay,
Yep.
because
Just
they
your
can be
perspective on,
can be tricky.
yeah,
Okay,
your
okay,
perspective on this subject. And like I said, just a couple seconds, not more than
okay,
like
okay.
basically around 5 seconds. So the kind
All
of
right,
first thought that comes to mind. So here's the
all right.
first
Let
one.
me
You're gonna
get
love this
ready.
one. You're gonna love it.
Okay, okay. Politics. Stay away from.
I I know that's a popular one. I hear that often. What about this one? What do you think of this?
Economy keeps you busy.
You see busy. All right. What do you think of this?
Wealth, let's use it for the good.
Amen. Amen.
Truth, we need to share it. We need to share the truth. I'm not seeing it. Eternity. Yeah. All people are longing for the eternity. They have to know that it's found in Jesus.
Amen. All right. Check out this one.
Dating, make sure you're ready. Make sure you're ready to get
Awesome.
married. Date when you're ready to get married.
See, there's like little nuggets that are
Yeah. Love is giving. Love is giving.
nice. I like that.
Marriage is everlasting, is eternal.
Amen.
Purpose. We all need a purpose. We all need a purpose. Church. Uh, church. Go to church. Stay in church and be the church.
Hmm. Nice. Nice.
Family. Family is a unit. Family is not the husband or the wife and the kids, but is a unit working together.
And the grand finale. All right, you ready for this one?
The
All
grand
right.
finale. I don't know. Let me see. I don't know if I'm
Make it
ready.
good, Alex. Make it not
Okay, okay,
like the other
okay,
ones.
okay, okay,
All right.
okay. Jesus, you're the reason we're alive and we long to see you.
Amen. Amen, brother. That's right. So that's what it ends up kind of all about at the end.
Yeah,
Alex,
yeah.
thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing, like I said, about your family, about your journey, and the ministry that you guys are involved in. I think you rekindled the passion to disciple again, like on a one-to-one basis, and not just through like I like to call it hand-to-hand combat, where it's one-on-one. I think that's something that stood out to me from what you're telling me. God bless you, and hopefully some of the audience members really were inspired by the discussion and the story. I hope they reach out to you and are able to help in any way they can. What you guys are doing there. So thank you so much. Um, and hopefully I'll see you soon. To our audience member that joined us again, thank you so much for listening to this another edition of Making Your Life Count. I hope you were inspired. I know I was, and hope join us next time for another story, an inspirational story of making your life count. Until then, don't forget to make your lifetime count. See you next time.
Amen.
God bless.
God bless.